Okay, so it's just me. No, I'm just kidding. Eric is here. Unfortunately, this Sunday, we are off to a rough start. We're
going back to Thursday. Screw this shit. Sorry.
Sundays is off to a rough start for us already.
We're going back display name. I forget. I messed that up.
To give everybody a little, what'd you mess up? That's all right. We just got to get the muting going so we don't have all the...
It's muted. This is horrible.
Yeah. Don't mind all the technical difficulties this week. We will make this... It'll work somehow, some way. So somehow our other computer fell off. You got to turn your sound all the way off on that.
It's all the way down. See it?
All the way down? There you go.
All the way down, bud.
There we go. I don't have any more echo, so we're good. Let me add you in while you're doing that so we can see your beautiful face as the irritation is ringing out in both of our faces.
That was chill, man.
You were chill, I wasn't, and then this
is gonna be horrible.
It's gonna be great with our guests. Right now
that's even worse.
We're struggling through. So all right, guys, welcome to the Contagion Effect. We're going to find our way through today.
We haven't had one of these in a while.
No.
We haven't had the misfortune
is beyond brutal of whatever's happened during the setup of this show.
Remember, when we went, something had to drop. We've had technical difficulties the last couple of weeks since we went to Sunday.
Yes, I'm gonna have to restart that computer.
Let's just go back to Thursdays.
We gotta get the couple people. We just got September 9th though, or 8th. Sorry, I'm saying 9th.
We got football dinner.
We got team dinner for September 8th.
Team dinner.
I can't really do that. All right, so I'm still hearing an echo.
I know.
Somehow.
I don't.
Somewhere.
Hello.
Yep.
Yeah, dude.
Oh boy. All right, Eric, how was your week?
Confusing to say the least. Yeah, so we switched bid times and all that stuff
again.
So now we're switching back.
Okay.
So we went to 10 o'clock starts and now we're going back to 4 a.m.s.
So we told you all we were moving to Sundays back. And now we're gonna
moving back.
And
my mic is muted, bro.
Well, there's sound coming from something. Something's got sound playing out of it. We'll figure it out. It's all right. Can you go sideways though?
Yeah.
That way, as everybody sees the technical, us dealing with all the technical pieces of the show. Yes. All right. So we're gonna be going back to Sundays. Thursdays. We'll talk about that later, right?
Hey, so we talked about Cammie went and got her eyelash certification.
Oh yeah, and you got yours done or something.
Dude, I don't know if you can tell, but if you're a friend of mine on my, Facebook or Instagram,
I think you have to do the side view of how cute your eyelashes are.
One's permed and one's not permed.
Yeah,
that's why we're dad lifing it.
Hey, well, we always remember. I remember when Cody first came up to me after he met you, and he said, "Dad, I talked to that Eric Mello guy. He's cool, but his toenails are all painted and stuff. He's a little strange."
Still there.
Yep. You've always done
got it.
So, and again, that's 2 daughters for you, right?
You're gonna do that. You're gonna do that things. I talked to a couple of guys that have daughters. I'm like, dude, just enjoy it.
Yeah.
Because now they don't want to have dinner with you
or be around. Anyways, unfortunately. So, are you ready?
Let's just do it.
Yeah, let's jump into it. Let's jump into our intro and then dive into it, because otherwise we're just trying to get around the inevitable.
Oh, look at that! I can hear.
You can hear? Oh, you didn't have them on all the way?
I wouldn't go double.
All right, here we go.
Yeah, the times and places, they may change, but one thing stays the same. The stories that they tell about going through hell, if you think they wouldn't do it all over again, well, you just don't know them. The memories that they are of the ones
There we go. There's
Scotty.
there's some positivity right there.
Scotty, our boy Scotty.
That played well.
You know, it's funny because I went on like all of our, hey, you stole this song from someone, you don't have the rights to do it on our Facebook. It was like 37 of them.
Oh, well, was there?
No, because we only have 34 shows, but there was like 27 of them.
It's ever since we.
And I'm like, go. So I started going through and like denying the changes, saying that we have. Yeah,
we have the
copyright.
I gave up on because YouTube we have that on every single literally every single show. Well, in talking to this guy, he's like, dude, I own it. It's my. I don't even know how to fix that. So we maybe we do send the request and it'll go to him or something and he can say accept. I don't know.
It's all good.
Well, time to go. Are you gonna sit there and hold that?
I'm gonna have to. It's all like up my nose and it's not a good angle. You want it sideways. No.
Whoa, Timber.
This is a shit.
Today.
Sorry for cussing.
It's all right.
So
let's jump in.
Yeah, let's just get into it. We focus on veterans and we focus on mental health, and we're going to hit that hard today. I'm hoping we have some laughs along with some of the stories and some of the trials and tribulations that this young lady's went through. I've known her back in high school, and you know, as we get older, everyone kind of parts their ways and excuse me, does their things, and we get to a point in life where you're like that aha moment, you know,
right?
And this young lady, she has had an aha moment, and I'm gonna let her tell it, but from where she started to the low of lows to the high of highs, it's a journey we're going to go on, and it's going to be emotional. So, you know, strap in, but remember that this is what we have this show for. This is what it's designed for.
Right.
So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Olivia Lloyd to the Contagion Effect.
What's up, Olivia?
Good evening.
Hi.
Hey, we can hear you. What do you know? Our technical difficulties started way before our computer went off.
We're having a good old time. We're just saying, okay, well, here, boom.
Yeah.
13 minutes in, here comes Olivia, and then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah. It's
got to be that Sacramento Valley internet up there.
Yeah, it's our fault.
Wow. Just already blaming the guest.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Wow.
Hi,
that's
greetings.
The beginning of the roller coaster right there. We're seating right now.
Yeah.
How are you this evening?
I'm doing good. I'm really happy to be here and just happy to spend this time with you guys and talk about life. So thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm, first I apologize that you had to deal with Eric when he was a teenager.
There was different groups. I mean, being that Downey's
so big.
We had such a huge class, right?
Yeah.
And so there's so many different factions. Fashion. Well, that's a fact. That was a group too.
I'm sure.
I hang out with Mr. Vachier's class, but anyways, I digress. But no, and again, like I said, everyone ran around with such different groups, and we all crossed over and stuff like that. And it's funny because I go back and I'm like, man, it's high school. It's 4 years of your life, but you have all these friendships that you make. But for me, it kind of was like a blur. Like it really was. I mean, you get in, you get out, and you meet your lifelong friends, and you don't have to talk. We don't talk. I don't talk to anybody from high school, really.
Right.
Right.
But I want to tell stories, and I knew we had talked way back in December when we first launched it. I actually think you threw your husband out there to join us first. And I knew a little bit of your story.
Yeah.
And I knew I knew I had to allow you that kind of the stepping stones to get you to talk about it. Right.
Sure.
So, we can start at the when you got in and all that stuff. But if there's,
we already know she went to Downey, right?
Yeah. No, like I said, when we can jump right into it if we want to get.
So first off, what made you join the service?
Well, my grandparents raised me, and my grandpa was in the Army, and he never talked about his time in service. but I always knew that that was a part of his life that he valued. And then I had my daughter right out of high school. I was one of those girls. And I gave her up for open adoption. And I felt after I gave her up that if I stayed in Modesto, that my life wasn't going to go anywhere. And I remember getting off work one day. I worked at Macy's and just got off the bus right at the military stop. I don't even really remember what made me want to pull the cord. I hadn't been thinking about it, but when I saw those offices, I just said, I need to get off right here.
Were
and
you over on Standiford and
yes.
that
Oh my gosh. Well, I used I worked at the mall, but I used to live on El Vista, so it was quite a ways for me to get over there. But so I stopped after work one shift and just went in there. I talked to all 4 branches in one day. And I went into the Marine Corps and the guy really didn't talk to me. I said hello and he said no thank you.
Wow.
So that was kind of funny. And then I went in and I talked to the Air Force and I didn't have any interest in flying. And so I walked out of there. I talked to the Army and they really tried to scare me with the whole 70 pounds on your back both ways. It was the Navy that when I walked in, they said, how's it going, short stuff? And it just felt like home. It felt like home. And so I signed up without telling my family. I didn't ask anybody's permission. I mean, I was 18 at the time, 19 by the time I swore in, but I did it of my own. I didn't tell a soul. I didn't tell my friends. I didn't tell anybody. I just took the tests and I did everything that day. They drove me home that night because I was at the office so late. And I already signed the paper. I did everything. I was ready to go.
Without anybody?
Without anybody.
Wow. And then, so did you, when you shipped off, you head off to outside Chicago?
So I went to Great Lakes for boot camp. And then when I completed that, I got sent to my first A school, which was Radioman A school in San Diego at the NTC there. And when I graduated there, I graduated top 5 of my class. So I got to choose orders. So I chose the Naval Air Station in Sicily. Everybody else wanted to stay stateside, and I was like, I couldn't get far enough away. So
if you're going to go in,
I
mean,
Sicily,
world, right?
That's rough.
Yeah.
I mean, all the war going on in Sicily, that sounds really rough.
Yeah.
I mean,
well,
that's worse than
the terrorism, pizza.
So
and wine.
Right. What a lot of people don't know about the Naval Air Station there is that we were actually the hub of the Mediterranean, and so we were operational support during Desert Storm and Desert Shield. So any of the squadrons that flew in and out to Bahrain flew through us.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of my friends were in the squadrons, the HC-4 Stallions, to name one specific squadron. They were from my base in Sicily, and they were flown out there and did operations there. So we were not in the, right on the lines of war, but we stayed at Delta my entire tour. For my first enlistment, we never left the highest threat con that there is. So from the time I got to Sicily, we were already at ThreatCon Delta. We lived with dogs going through our cars, mirrors checking bombs, waiting at the gate for hours to get on base.
Hours to just get on base?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, and Olivia, we've learned, especially with the mental health piece, where you brought up the comment that you weren't in it. We've learned we're not caught up on that. We are
every week
because we've heard people put down other veterans. Oh, well, you're not. I just seen a TikTok where somebody said, if you're not a combat veteran, are you really a veteran? And I'm like, come on.
I have a story from a neighbor.
I know you
right down the street. I just talked to him yesterday too about it. I'm like, okay, hey, so I'll get ready to go. Okay, talk to you later. Bye. Yeah. Like, I don't want to hear it. Like, you signed that line.
Because you did stuff that supported those guys, and if they didn't have people like you, then how do they do their job, right? So, and we had a guy who was a Vietnam vet, and he was supposed to be shipped out. He lucked out, and then he ended up working in a hospital with children and seeing crazy things happen with children, and he got PTSD from that. So, we're not judgmental on. So what you did was very important to the cause, and
and then she has the tie to one of our former guests, Justin Wood.
Right.
I do. Yeah.
So did you see him out there, or I know you guys went to school together?
Well, we went to school together. I left in September of '95. I'm not
Oh,
sure when
okay.
Justin left, but I know that I was in Sicily when the bombing happened. I was already
Okay.
in Sicily when that happened, and I actually got a phone call from my grandma letting me know that Justin was a part of that. So it's crazy because my original job was radioman, so I should have been within the intelligence community.
Uh-huh.
But how can I say this? Like all good Christian girls that grow up in a really strict home, sometimes we do things we shouldn't do. And when I graduated from radioman A school in San Diego, I partied a lot to celebrate that graduation. And I may or may not have physically been able to walk back across the border from Mexico in my celebration.
Oh.
Celebrated right out of that job, eh?
Well, and
Right out of that. Well, to be a radioman, you have to have a top secret NATO clearance if you're going to serve overseas. And the job is basically very cloak and dagger, very in a vault. It's everything that you would imagine a top secret clearance would need to do. So
Right.
I was unable to fulfill my duties after that because you can't have a drunken disorderly conduct charge on your very new sailor record. So
with
yeah,
clearances.
Might be frowned upon.
yeah. So when I
Wow.
got over there, I kind of worked around the base trying to decide what I wanted to do because you become undesignated when you don't have your job any longer, what you were trained for.
Mhm.
So I became undesignated and I ended up volunteering in the post office because in my head, I was like, any monkey can pitch letters. This will be so easy. What I didn't know is that it's probably the hardest job on the base outside of the squadrons, the guys that are taken off all the time, because it's not just the post office, it's the huge fleet mail center that's supporting every ship that's dispersed in the hub of the Mediterranean. It's supporting all of the other bases within the Mediterranean theater. So what that means is any mail that comes from the States that needs to go to Bahrain, Venezia, any Aviano, any place, Germany, any place you can think of in Europe, it comes through us first. So if you can imagine 18-wheel semi trucks pulling up 3 times a day at a huge warehouse and being filled top to bottom, front to back with mail and having to physically hump that stuff out of the back of a truck for 12 hours. Now you know what my job was. And I got to go out to flights. So when the bombing happened with Justin, he came through our base. His came through us. And so he came through and then they were dispersed from there. And so part of our job is to keep track of that. The job that I did for Postal, it also includes things like that. So
and it was all service member, like all didn't matter. Wow.
Yeah, so
that's wow.
So I didn't know that he was serving. I had no idea. I knew my friend Tanya had joined. I'm sure Eric remembers Tanya Lopez. I knew Chris Ridgway had joined. But I didn't know that Justin had joined. And so it was a huge shock to find that out, well after the fact. And my grandma had told me they're going to be having a big celebratory parade for him. And right around when that happened, I had my first miscarriage. And so I fought for my life with that. And I just remember it just felt like everything happened at once. The base was already at Delta. So we were already at a very high threat con. And then having that bombing happen, they restricted us to the base. That's terrifying because you're over here fighting for America's freedom and then you don't have your own freedoms when you're on the base.
Right.
They locked us down, so to speak. So, and your guard details become different. You wear a helmet, you wear a flak jacket, and you sit in the tower as opposed to standing on the quarterdeck, having people sign a logbook. So life becomes very, very different at that point.
I'm sure you're always have some kind of armor or weapon on you and
well, I mean, not everybody.
Okay.
You have to be on duty to carry a weapon, for sure. Definitely not like the Army or like the Corps. You had to be at your guard station to have a weapon on you. For
even
that,
during threat?
What's that?
Even during the high threatened period?
Yeah, well, it's so whoever was on watch, so whoever was standing duty as a sentry at the gates, those are the people that would carry the weapons. The rest of us, no. None.
Okay.
Can you imagine if every sailor was armed? So no, we wouldn't all be armed. Oh, we lost Eric. Or I lost
he'll be
Eric.
back. It's our we're in a vortex today, so we'll find our way through this.
It's okay.
All right. So how long were you in Sicily?
So I joined in September of 95. I arrived there at the beginning of June of 96.
Mm-hmm.
And then I left there October of 99.
Oh, wow.
And then I was stateside for just a little over a year. And then I returned back to Sicily, and I served from towards the end of 2000 the end of 2000 until 2003.
So you stayed there almost 3 or 4 years each stint?
Well, I got married. So when you get married, your duties get extended. So I got married when I first, that was just a whole nother. So my whole like drunken disorderly conduct thing in Tijuana, not only did it take my clearance, but it also took I don't know, it was kind of just a way of coping. I think I didn't recognize it at the time. I was still very young, but they told me, you either have to go to rehab or you have to get out. And I didn't think I had a problem. I was barely 21.
You're like, every 20-year-old does all this, right?
Yeah, I'm like, everybody's everyone's drinking. I'm not surely I'm not the only person, but not everybody's waking up and having their hands shaking and drinking before they go to work, And I just got to a place, and I'm sure it had to do with my giving up my daughter for adoption, having that miscarriage, just kind of all of the things that went on. I'm sure it was just a culmination of not being able to handle it. And
did you do therapy? Did you go through therapy for that? Did you address any of that?
No, I didn't address. That's the thing that, the agency offered therapy when I gave Emily up. They offered that. Sorry to name her. Well, she's been given a new name now that she's been adopted, but so that they wanted me to do therapy, and I just wanted to forget that it happened. And I just remember saying, I don't need it. I'm fine. And just thinking that if I went to church on Sunday, that I would be okay.
Yeah.
But I wasn't okay. And there were other things that happened prior to that were sad, and things that I never talked about in high school, and I never told people, and I let people kind of create narratives about me, and I never fought those narratives. I never stood up for myself. And so going to the military for me was, I told somebody a while ago, it was more like running away.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew I would be safe because they would take care of me and they wouldn't let anybody hurt me, or at least in my brain, that's
that
what
was your family. That's who was going to protect you and look over you and deal with what you had to do.
And the fact that you stay, I mean, we talk to everybody, and they get stationed somewhere, and they're there like 10 months, maybe a little longer, and you stayed in Sicily 3 years, right?
Yeah.
The first time, and then you went back and stayed almost another 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
So you definitely, you show all the signs of wanting to get away.
Yeah. Well, I just, Eric and I, we knew each other in high school. We didn't know each other in high school.
Yeah. We didn't, like I said, there's so many different little groups. Like I knew her, and we had the mutual friends and stuff like that. Right. But it just, we kind of hung different groups.
Mm-hmm. Eric and I had Mr. Cop together with a mutual friend, Heather Agenbrod. And I don't know if he remembers that, but it was history class, Mr. Cop with the mustache and the cowboy boots.
Wrong. And everyone thought he was hot. All the chicks dug. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, everybody loved Mr. Cop.
Oh, yeah.
That was probably, I would say, the closest I was to Eric was during that. And then when I was a rally commissioner, because I ended up being at all the games and anything that he was doing for sports, I was there. So I kind of saw him from like a distance, but I knew him the best because of the history class, I would say. And Heather loved Eric. Well, everybody loved Eric. Everybody wanted to hug Eric. Eric was like everyone's huggable teddy bear. You just wanted to hug Eric.
He still is.
You're having a bad day, find Eric.
He still is. He still is. When he ran youth football, we called him the mayor of Houston. So
yeah.
He was everybody's friend.
No, I believe that.
You remember that, right? We literally had to do exercise and walk the park to get away from people.
We did.
And that still didn't work. Yeah.
Well, and then there was me who, I have a tattoo that even says it says Mad Mike, because Eric was the nice guy that was going to be your friend. And I'm, I loved all the kids. Like the kids Never heard anything.
Parents were
The
assholes.
parents, though,
Sorry.
they would
Parents were
they
jerks.
would get my wrath, and Eric would still be, like good cop, bad cop here, and
Again, it's one of those things. I wasn't a great president. I wasn't a good president.
no,
But I had a lot of people. He said no. He had a lot. I have a lot of people that knew how to do certain things really well, and that's the mark of
That's where the
that
president
knows what they're doing. It's like, dude, go do your thing. Listen, you can go and then do this, and you go do that, and we're good. And I don't care if you get along with this guy over here or that guy there. I don't care, because the main focus is the kids. So, yeah. So you
I feel
go
like
off
we're on
and
cribs right now, though. We're getting the
we're
cribs.
getting the walk
We're
around.
getting
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
the walk
it's all
around.
good.
It's all good.
It's either that or you're gonna hear one of my cats shriek to be let out. So.
Oh, cats are that ain't
Poor Lou. We've already made her move once,
yeah.
and then now
No,
our
it's all
cat's
good.
making
You
her
go
move.
get comfortable. You're
Yeah.
fine. You're fine.
Go. Hey, we'll have, I'm sure there might be barking because our security likes to bark a lot around here.
Yeah.
Yay.
We'll be all right.
Okay.
Right. So you are in Italy, then you decide to come back. What's the deal there? Do you come back, and then what happens?
Well, because when you get married, it automatically extends your tour. And so being stationed in Sicily is considered sea duty. And so when I got married, it automatically extended my tour, which, by the way, I ended up going to rehab in Rota, Spain, because they said either you go or you get out. And so the closest inpatient is in Rota, Spain at the Naval Air Station there. So that's 3 months of being locked down literally in a lockdown facility. And I didn't think that I had a drinking problem because, like we've already said, everybody my age is drinking. Everybody on the base is partying. And so when I got there, they put you on the detox wing first. And I feel like it's almost like a wing to prove to you that you have a problem, because by the first night, it's everything that you hear. It's sweating, it's hand shaking, it's not being able to sleep, your legs are cramping, and you just feel, it's probably one of the worst things I've experienced. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. When were you there? Was that in the 90s? The end of the
90s? 97.
Okay.
97. They shipped me out to Rota, Spain.
Okay.
And then when I got back, he's my ex-husband now, but he proposed to me at a bar on the base when I got back to Sicily, and they showered us with champagne. So
wait a minute.
She came back from
In our pre-interview, I read over all that, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. Wait a minute. Yeah. Hey, you know what? Some people just do what they know, right? That's basically what it sounds like.
It was in a bar. Yeah. That's where people don't
You just came out of AA rehab from the government.
Navy rehab.
In his mind, he should have still been able to drink even if I had to stay sober. Because when I was in there, I learned, drinking was a way for me to escape. It was a way to forget. And I was more fun when I was drunk. I had no fear. And in your brain, that's what you tell yourself. I'm more fun and I have no fear. And so when I came back and he proposed to me, I said yes. And all of our drinking, everybody was there, and so it was like, okay, well, I'll just stay sober and I can do this. I've got this. But as I wrote in my thing, I signed up to teach fitness classes. I did whatever I could to get myself above water. I stayed in counseling. I did journaling. I was just, it's called distraction. But when you're trying to stay sober and you don't want your friends to hate you, you do what you can to make your life make sense. And so that's what I did. And
you're also young, and nobody, even back then, I don't think any of us understood.
No.
We drank and and unfortunately
I drive better when I'm drunk. Wasn't that the whole mentality, right? That's
you did not condone that.
No, that's stupid. You're an idiot if you do, and you're dumb, and I'll call the cops on you.
But yeah,
I remember thinking I'm more fun when I'm drunk because I'm easier to laugh. I'm more brave. I cliff jumped off a 30-foot cliff when I was drunk. I wouldn't do that sober, but I would do it a couple of bottles of wine down, so.
But that's almost every, there's some people that are just naturally, they'll sky's the world, or, the sky's the limit. And there's others, that are a little more shy, and unfortunately that does open you up. So, all right. So you guys get married And then
Mhm.
you're back home now. Was he on base? He was on base with you, right?
So yeah, he was also in the military. He was an
Okay.
aviation mechanic. So
Okay.
he worked in the aviation community, and I was in the what we would call the black shoe community. And so my orders were done. So my orders ended September of '99. So I got there '96. They were over September of '99, and then my next 4 years were what we call it's reserve, but it's inactive. So I signed up for a full 8. So I first 4 were full active, and then the next 4 were inactive reserve with the option to be activated at any time, which is the understanding that you have to have when you sign a contract like that. And so so when he was done, and says I was done in September, but I was extended until he was done, and he was done in October, and then we got transferred stateside to the Naval Air Station in Lemoore, California, which is over by
exciting.
Is that
What
if
a
you weren't an
great area.
alcoholic, going to Lemoore will make,
Yeah.
will make you an alcoholic.
There's not a lot happening in
Love you,
Lemoore.
Lemoore was in the new Top Gun movie.
It was.
Yeah, when I heard it, I was like, oh, because I used to, for AT&T, I had to deal with the Hanford and Tulare stores. So, you know, we had a lot of guys and girls coming from Lemoore to the stores.
Right.
Yeah. But exciting place.
There's nothing out there but fields, and then more fields, and then all of a sudden there's this base just in the middle of.
Well, it's built out now.
Yeah.
It's built out like houses upon houses.
Casino.
But it's still such a trip. I know it's a naval air station, but it's still trip that in the middle of
the middle of the farmland.
Yeah, there's a naval
it's
station.
a naval's water.
But the fact that it was mentioned in Top Gun, I was like, oh, that's crazy.
It's Lemoore.
And the parts that they did it in Top Gun is because we saw that movie 3 times in the theater, and as soon as I saw certain scenes, I was like, oh my gosh, that's Lemoore. I mean, you recognize it right away. I was stationed there as inactive reserve, and then I activated my reserve, but my ex-husband was there for just about 2 years. And by the time I barely cycled through there a year, and I was already back out. But we had September 11th, we had all those things that took place.
Wow.
So he remained there longer than I was there.
At Lemoore.
Speaking of September 11th.
Yeah.
Speaking of American Veterans.
We're going to be at American Veterans first.
There you go.
Yeah. That'll be amazing.
So when you ended up going back to Sicily now after.
I did. So this will be another sad, I'll try to keep the sad segments brief, but so I went through another miscarriage in Lemoore. And this time it was pretty bad. And so when I came out of the surgery, they said, if this happens again, like, we'll have to take your tubes and that'll be that, because it almost took my life. And so there was just, by that point, the marriage had completely combusted, and I knew that he was having an affair. And I just said, if I don't get out of here, and again, it was that thought process of what I knew that the military would take care of me. And so I knew I had 4 years left on my contract. And so I went to the offices in Lemoore and I said, I need to be re-upped back to full active. And so I said, but I don't want to go back to postal. Is there anything else that I can do? And they said, well, we can send you to aircrew school, and you can, be a part of the aircrew and be on a P3 platform and fly. And I was like, I'll do it. Just send me, I'll do it. And, they're like, well, you have to be able to swim. I'm like, I'm a great swimmer, had to pool my whole life. And so they sent me to the Naval Air Station in Pensacola, Florida. So I drove there by myself from Lemoore to Florida.
Wow.
Yeah, that was probably not a good idea, but I did it anyways. I just couldn't wait to get out. I was like, I don't, just give me paper and let me sign and let me get out of here. So I did it anyway. I drove to Florida. I had my first really bad panic attack right before I left. I didn't know what it was. I just knew that all of a sudden I felt like I couldn't breathe. And I ran out of my house and ran like down the sidewalk until it went away. And then nothing else. And so I was like, well, that was weird, and I just kind of ignored it and just gave away whatever else I had to my ex and took off.
What do you feel triggered it?
I'm sure stress. I'm sure
that not dealing with all the things in their life.
Yeah.
Basically. I was
arrested.
Right? Yeah, I mean that's you build it up and you look at the
Yeah.
bottom of the bottle to solve your answers, and
But she didn't really have that anymore. I mean, that wasn't in
no,
her
but
mind. That wasn't a choice.
but,
It's always
I mean,
there.
Yeah, it's always there. But then going through abuse and 2 miscarriages.
Yeah,
I had 2 miscarriages.
2, right.
And then my ex-husband, around the time that I found out that he was having the affair, like Eric just said, that was probably the first time that he put hands on me in such a way where I was in fear for my life. There was an incident in Sicily where he stood on my neck and spit in my face, pulled my hair to the ground, stood on my neck, spit in my face. But we were all very drunk. And I just remembered thinking that,
he's drunk.
He's drunk. But this was a sober incident that happened. And I had come home from work and I knew about the affair. And I came in to talk with him, and instead of having a conversation, he was just kind of standing in the dark with a cigarette and Metallica playing in the background. And I started to go towards him, and I just got this feeling like, turn around, like go to the bedroom. Don't approach him. Just leave him alone. And so I turned around to go from the living room down the hall to our bedroom, and I will never forget. I didn't hear his feet, but I felt the wind from his fist as it passed the back of my head. And I just heard him calling me effing whore. And so I bolted for the bedroom and I tried to shut the door, and his fist went through the door, and I jumped out of the bedroom window and I just ran for my life. And I knew that was it. That was it.
Had to go.
That was it. I couldn't stay after that. So
damn.
The next day
you wanted to go drive across the country because you couldn't get out fast enough.
Right. And so I didn't want to involve his command. I didn't want, because anything you do in the military, because I'm not full active duty, but I'm still a member. I'm still a military member. I still have 4 years on my contract. So I knew if I drew any attention to this beyond what it already was going to be, because I had to go to security and tell them like, I need to call my friend. I didn't have a phone. I didn't have anything. So that I could have some place to go, so there was already going to be an issue. So I ended up going to my work the next day, and I grabbed some spare keys that I had there. And in my brain, I was just, how am I going to manage this? How am I going to get out of here? How am I going to put these pieces together just so much faster? The first thing was obviously to visit the offices in Lemoore and re-up to full active duty. But before I could get out of my office at the base, my ex showed up completely obliterated. He could hardly walk. And he picked up my stapler off my desk and he launched it at me full force. And I honestly credit God that it missed me. I really don't know how it did, because where it hit into the wall was directly behind my head. So it's like it passed through it's just so bizarre. Even to this day, I can still see it. The stapler was stuck into the wall.
Wow.
And it was lodged so hard that when they pulled it out, it took a chunk of that wall with it. And so for me, so I had a friend named Joni who used to come to my fitness classes that I taught. So she let me stay at her place, and I was out of there within 2 weeks. I was out of there. So that's so fast to be processed in and be out of there. I mean, they got me those orders so quick. I drove to Pensacola, Florida. I got there and he turned my car in for theft and said I stole it. And so they came and took it. So now I'm just stuck in Florida, and didn't know that I was pregnant. And so I did the air crew schooling, and I was, doing really well. And then I got a phone call saying it was him, that he had filed for divorce and that he was having a baby with someone else. And I had these really bad pains, like I don't, maybe like a couple of days, but I just kept ignoring them. But I dropped my air crew classes, and I just said, I just want to go back to Sicily. I'll stay a postal clerk. Like, I don't care. Again, Eric kind of hit it earlier. I never dealt with anything. Not really. I dealt with it just in little increments, and I didn't have enough of a skill set to deal with it. And so I just wanted to I just kept running. Like, I would deal with it a little bit, and then I would run, and then I would deal with it a little bit, and then I would run. And so for me, it was, well, now I have to get out of Pensacola. Send me back to Sicily. I don't care. I'll stay in postal. I'll do whatever. And they were like, well, actually, they need postal people over there, but we're going to send you to the school. You need to have the school under your belt. So they sent me to South Carolina, to Fort Jacks. And I did the postal school in like record time because it's self-paced. And then I was back in Sicily. and I was back. I was barely in Sicily for, I want to say, gosh, maybe 2 weeks. And I found out I was pregnant again, and I miscarried. And this time they took my tubes and they said, that's it. Like, we can't, because it kept happening in my tubes. So that kind of, so that was it. And that was kind of, I hate to say, was kind of the beginning of the end for me. I pretty much unraveled. I quit going to work, which you can't do when you're in the military. You have to show up. And I had panic after panic after panic. It was my first career. I was celebrated. I was pictured in the Navy Times as a celebrated sailor. I had an amazing evaluation and was just what you would call a shining star. It's what they want their sailors to be. And my second enlistment was what they don't ever want to see in the military. And so they just ended up telling me, at this point, we can't, there's really nothing we can do for you. And they offered counseling, but the counselor's recommendations were that I be immediately removed from the military. And at that point, I'm pretty sure I went through what I would consider probably a nervous breakdown. And I didn't sleep for days on end. And I just started thinking about ways that I could end my life. And I'll never forget being on the base and sitting in my room and thinking, I'm just going to sit in this window and I'm going to see how long it takes me before I get the courage to just jump out of it. And I sat in the window and I was reported. And then right before they were shipping me away from Sicily to process me out in Virginia, I had been given a bunch of medications to try to stabilize the depression that I was obviously going through and the anxiety. And I just remember pouring all of them out on the bed and just thinking, I'm just going to take all of these and that'll be that. And I had a roommate at the time who was never home because she had a boyfriend, and she happened to come back to the barracks that night and she caught me and she stopped me. And so,
wow. That's what I was going to ask. Did you have anybody? I mean, I know, especially that's why we really want to get some female veterans, because, the road's not always the same for every single veteran. Right. And I think it gets traveled a little differently per person, but I think, some of our female veterans have had a little bit tougher roads depending on, how they've been treated, or, just the steps you took going into the recruiters' offices. I mean, that shows it all. Like you had to go to all four, and finally, the Navy was the one that, like, yeah, we'll take you. Yeah. Where everybody else kind of just shunned you right away.
Well, and she watched, over the course of the couple pre-interviews that we had talked about Rachel Marchbanks, and she had watched that and another, different road, but still, it's the same trauma,
right.
And
the story is a lot the same.
I mean, that's my thing is like, it's like you feel lost, you run off and you go to a place where you think that they're going to be there for you. And now they're like basically saying, hey, listen, like, we're shipping you home and good luck.
Yeah.
But did you have anybody to confide? Sorry, I apologize.
No, you're okay.
Like, you said you had the roommate that came and luckily probably stopped you from making your decision, but
right. I mean, my friend Jeannie from high school would know this, as would Holly Doty and Tara and some other people. I don't think Eric is aware of this. Some people, although maybe, I don't know. Brian talked to some people in school too. So, but in high school, my grandparents raised me because my mother was a drug addict, and a pretty bad one. She was in and out of prison. And so, when I left, I left because I gave my daughter up. I left because I couldn't stand to be home. I mean, there were so many things. And so for me, I couldn't call home and say I'm a big failure.
Right.
I didn't really talk to my family once I left. I really tried to just stay very removed. I think the only 2 times I talked to my grandmother on the phone, 3 times would have been when our friend Justin was killed, when our friend Lacey went missing, and when I got married. And I was away from my family for a full 8 years, and I only spoke to them 3 times. Wow. And I didn't get any letters. And so there was just so much there. So I didn't have anybody at home that I could call. And and we all graduated high school, everybody's lives, you just move forward, And then on the base, I mean, we had friends when I was married, but when I went back that second tour, nobody was there that I knew from when I was previously there, you know, so I had to carve out a whole new life for myself. And I'm a married sailor living in a single barracks with single sailors. And, you know, I'm in my second tour, and we're still at, we went from Charlie to Delta while I was there, because now we're in Desert Shield. And so, you know, it's hard to verbalize. You can't really say to anybody, I need help, because you're there to serve the country. You're not there to serve yourself. And that's a really loud and clear message. And so when you are of no use to your country, they don't want anything else to do with you. And that was kind of that. So did I have friends? I mean, I had shipmates,
but
you know,
who confide in and feel like
nobody,
yeah,
not really.
You were really out on, you know, not to have the pun and Navy pun, but you were really out on an island, right, by yourself when you're doing
right. Yeah.
That's even harder.
And also because I didn't think that they would process me out for being depressed. I just thought they would make me stay in counseling, or, you know, I knew I'd probably be in trouble for drinking again, but I didn't think that would be the end of my career. I just thought they'll understand. I'm going through a divorce. I've had 3 miscarriages. I've nearly died twice. Like, they're going to understand, you know, they're not going to kick me out. It just never occurred to me that they would say, you know, that's it. And, so when they did, they were kind of like, okay, we're going to send you to Virginia. We're going to process you out. And I got my first enlistment, I had an honorable discharge, because like I said, it's a 4-year increment.
Mm-hmm.
My second enlistment, I got an other than honorable, and they discharged me with having depression and things like that. And so,
ouch.
You know, you're thinking, if you're medically separated, then they recognize there's a problem, right? And they're going to have these things in place for you as a veteran to help you when you get out. And like my very long email said, there was nothing in place for me when I got out. There was no help. There was no, here's some numbers to call. Here's, you know, your nearest office to help you. There was nothing. It was literally, here's your DD-214, sign here, and fair winds and
I didn't even know there was another category other than, you know, honorable or dishonorable. Now, how does that affect you when it comes to, you know, and actually benefits? And if you don't mind, because I do want to talk about everything after that, because you know, you've already been through a ton, but we do have to, you know, as they say, pay the bills around here. With this huge podcast we have, with all the technical difficulties and everything tonight. But we do have to run a commercial for our one sponsor, and then we'll come back, and I want to learn about after that. And, you know, you're obviously doing much better right now. So we want to get to the happiness and get through it. So if you don't mind, it's about 37 seconds. All right, here you go, Tamara. Now for our sponsor, Tamara Pulido with the Finance Group, where they're creating a future where everyone has access to the loan and home they love. Whether you're a veteran, law enforcement, a first-time home buyer, you're up or downsizing, or even if you need to just refinance, our community deserves proficiency and expertise. Better rates, faster close, welcome home. Tamara Pulido, NMLS 1655776. Again, that's Tamara Pulido, and her phone number is 209-204-3795. There we go.
Thanks, Tamara.
Thank you, Tamara.
Thanks, Tamara.
Sorry about that.
Oh, no.
Okay. So we've been sent to Virginia. What was the discharge? So
they discharged me with other than honorable.
Okay.
Which it's not the same as, so it's a general under honorable conditions.
Okay.
And so basically it means that I'm not getting a dishonorable discharge, but because I have medical stuff, it becomes an OTH other than honorable, general under honorable conditions.
That's crazy. Because what if guys, you know, that, you know, they go into, like we were talking about the combat veteran thing, right?
Right.
They go into combat and they lose, you know, their marbles from that or something.
Yeah.
Is that, you know, at that point, is that the same way? Because I feel like, is there an even keel when it comes to?
That's a good question. I would say if they get in trouble, like, drinking when you were told 4 years prior that you're not allowed to drink again, I think then, yeah, they would probably get an OTH. So I think, but if they just go crazy because of everything they've seen and all of their experiences, and they end up losing, the ability to maintain, I would say they probably would still get an honorable. I think it's really probably just going to depend. I know that I got the general under honorable because I started drinking again and I refused to go to work and I tried to hurt myself. And so when you do those things don't add up to an honorable, but they add up to a general under honorable conditions due to a medical condition.
Okay.
So,
all right.
But so I didn't lose any of my benefits. I didn't lose, and that's probably something really important to know. Is even with everything that I was suffering through, they didn't take everything from me, but they took the only place that I thought would take care of me. And even at that point, I was thinking, at least the military is a way to make money, even though I couldn't go to work because I couldn't stop crying and I couldn't get out of my bed and I could, so, but I was terrified. I mean, I worked when we were kids. I don't know if Eric would remember, but I worked at Miller's Outpost. I used to stand in the front and I was the greeter. So I said hello to everybody. But outside of that, what was I going to do? I had no clue when I came home what I was going to do. And I had my daughter, so I lost my scholarship to the Christian college I was supposed to go to right out of high school. I lost that. So when I came home, I was being divorced when I came home, and my husband had a baby with somebody else while we were married. And so I was just like, now what? Like, what do I do? And now I have this weird condition where I'm freaking out and my heart is racing and I'm not sleeping. And, how do you quantify that? How do you even, I had no, it's not like they said, oh, you're having panic. They just said, you need to get out. So
like, it's now your problem, not ours.
I mean, yeah. I mean, the XO of the base, I'll never forget. I had to stand in front of him and, be dressed down as it were. And he just said, you've got some real problems, shipmate, and you need to sort them out. And I think that phrase is very telling. You need to sort them out.
Yeah.
So
I don't even know where to start.
Yeah. I came to you to help me sort it out.
What do you think I'm here? Wow. So,
right, so let's fast forward a bit.
Well, let's get
back
to Virginia. So are you just dropped off in Virginia, or are you?
Well, they drop you off and you go right to these offices and they tell you you're going to do your processing out here. And then from Virginia, I got flown back to California, back to Modesto. Okay. And my grandma had moved over to like Walnut Blossom Way or something. And so I didn't know. So I didn't know where my family was because I hadn't talked to them for all those years. So that was really, really hard. Yeah.
So you showed up to the wrong house?
I did. I showed up to the wrong house. I did. And my grandma was like, oh my gosh, we're so sorry. We didn't realize, we didn't tell you. And I'm like, how long have you lived here? Must have been a while because the house on El Vista looks pretty bad. So,
crazy.
But yeah, so I got there and I just decided again, I didn't have any way to cope. And so I said, I'm going to go to college and try to do what I was supposed to do when I graduated high school. So I enrolled and went to Bethany College for 1 year. And that would have been in 2004 to 2005. And I failed all of my classes. I was in a hospital every week with anxiety. So that would kind of be the beginning of a cycle of trying something, losing employment, losing schooling, losing whatever it was I tried. I couldn't do it, and I lived all over. I moved to Santa Cruz. I moved to Redding. I moved to Michigan. I moved to San Jose. I lived everywhere, just Sacramento. I went everywhere for years. I had 30 jobs in 10 years. And I slept on couches and I had apartments and lost apartments and had cars and lost cars and just was so determined that I was going to make it, and never once really addressed what needed to be addressed. And by this point, I had what's called full-blown panic disorder, and it developed with agoraphobia, where you can't leave the house that you're in. Yeah.
So how do
What? Yeah.
how do you get through that?
Yeah.
Because I actually
What's
know
that turning point?
we have a family member that has that, and they still like literally not left the house.
Wow.
And it's been like 12 years.
Wow.
So I hope it's okay to share like faith stuff on here. Is that okay?
This is your platform.
Everything's about you.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, good. Because I would say for me, because by that point, I'm living in Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
I have no contact with my family. I was in a hospital in Ann Arbor for 2 weeks at a veterans hospital there. And they put me on Klonopin, which is basically like the equivalent of a horse tranquilizer. And I could still function during the day and drive. And I took it in the day and at night. And I could still, that just tells you how bad the anxiety was, that I could operate and act like a normal. You would have never known that I was on Klonopin.
Wow.
You would have never known. It's bad. I took a milligram twice a day.
Wow.
And I was able to just be just fine, and you would never have known it. And so I remember just, and I got out of the hospital, and that was, the agoraphobic episodes were the worst in Michigan, where I would be wanting so bad to go to cosmetology school, but I could not make myself walk out the front door. And I would just clutch the front door and just cry and just will myself to step out of it. And I couldn't do it. And I would just call an ambulance, and they'd have to come get me. And, but then even just taking me out of the home was just a whole nother thing. And so it got to this point where I was a prisoner in this woman's little basement that I was staying in. Then I'll never forget, a friend of mine had given me this book called The Purpose-Driven Life by Rick Warren. And I'd had it for the whole time I'd been in Michigan. So I'd been there for like 9 months. And I looked at it and I thought, I'll just read this, because I had read everything else that I had. So I was like, I'll just read this book. And so it's supposed to be like you read one chapter a day, and I read like the whole book in 3 days. And I felt like the faith that I had been raised in had felt dead to me for so long, because no matter how much I prayed, I still had this anxiety. No matter how much I begged God, I still couldn't sleep. No matter how much I cried and asked for forgiveness, my life wasn't getting any better. And to add insult to injury, I had people who said that they loved God, but they would tell me, if you just had more faith, God would heal you of this. And there's nothing worse than hearing that, because you're in your head, you're going, I have so much faith, and God is still not healing me,
Right.
And so I read this book, and I was like, at the end of the book, he just tells a story of his dad dying of cancer. And he says, my dad's in a hospital, he's dying of cancer. And Rick Warren is arguing with his dad, and then arguing with God, like, God, how could you do this to my dad? And the dad is trying to get out of the bed, and he's trying to get out of the bed. And Rick says to his dad, Dad, stop getting up. Like, why do you keep trying to get up? And his dad says, I just have to win one more person for Christ. And if I can do that, my life will have been worth it. And I read that, and I'm telling you, I was like, okay, I don't know what it means to know God like that and to love him so much that that's my focus. But it did something to me, and it took the focus off of my suffering, and it put the focus on what Christ suffered for me, and it shifted everything for me. And I packed what little meager belongings I had by this point. I think I had like 4 books and like maybe 10 items of clothing, and it all fit in one very small box. And I put it in the back of this car that I had. And I remember the next morning just being like, well, Jesus, it's me and you. And I don't know how we're going to do it, but we're going to do it. And I drove out of Michigan on that Klonopin. I drove back to California by myself. I read that book over and over. And when I got back to California, I moved in with a friend of mine named Colette. And she took me in, and she loved me. And she took me to a counselor that was very helpful. And took me to a really good church. And I had to pursue my wholeness from a whole different route. I started going to counseling on a more regular basis. I quit drinking coffee, which is a silly thing, but if you have anxiety, it's a huge deal. Obviously never touched alcohol again, but I had to find ways and reasons to live that were not anything to do with anybody else, but everything to do with my relationship with God. And suicide came off the table because I felt like if I kill myself, then my life will have been for nothing.
Right.
And surely God doesn't want that for me. Surely he wants more for my life than for me to take it by climbing over a bridge at 2:30 in the morning.
Right.
You know, and so I just got to that place where, okay, I'm going to do this. Well, when you get to that place and when you make that decision, then the next thing is, how do you deal with panic and anxiety in a tangible way? Because now I'm addressing my heart issues, right? I'm addressing the heart issues. But how do you address years really of trauma and pain that I've never touched, that I've never really unearthed with the counselor? Not really, you know, things that I never told anybody, the assault that I endured in high school and the assault that I endured in the military. Like, I never told people I was assaulted. You know, these men held me down. I never talked about any of those things. And so here I am, I'm having to address trauma and nearly dying when I lost my babies. And I have to address these traumas. And so the only way I felt I could do that was to go to the VA and tell them, I need help. And this is what I have going on. And so that's what I did. I went to the VA first in Sacramento. And I was in a program there for just about 40 days, I think. I want to say just about 40. And then they found me a bed in what's called a long-term program for veterans. And this was at Menlo Park. And this is where the real work happens, because the first thing they do is they take you off those lovely benzos that keep you from losing your mind, because they want to see, where are you at? What's your baseline?
Right.
My baseline was climbing the walls. You know, I was very afraid I was going to die. And so the moment that they started taking me off of that medication, I remember just, oh God, you can't. And then I would just immediately start having all this anxiety, and they just deep breaths. And, you know, they do all the things that people have been telling me for years, but now I have someone literally right next to me. Deep breaths. It's going to be okay. You're going to be fine. And I have a room full of people that are dealing with the same things. It was just such a different level, because now I'm not alone dealing with this trauma. I have my shipmates and my fellow military members with me dealing with the trauma. And we can't do it alone. And that's why, like, you guys doing this podcast and it's so important, because as veterans, we can't do it alone.
No.
We should never be left in a place where we're doing it alone, you know. And if people don't even have faith to fall back on, you know, but have their family, that's great. But I didn't have family. I had hardly any faith, you know. And so it was like, I was alone, truly, in every sense of the word. And I was bankrupt in my soul. And that is just, it's not survivable. But now I had the VA. I had this amazing program. It's in Menlo Park over in Palo Alto. It starts out with 28 days of detox, baby, just like the movie. You really are on a ward.
Wow.
For 28 days. And then they send you over, they kind of evaluate you during the 28 days, and they figure out what you need. And I needed to go to the post-traumatic stress disorder clinic over there. It's on the same campus. So they send you right across to go to that.
The main VA hospital?
So it's a massive campus in Menlo Park, like huge. And so it's not, so the PTSD clinics are not in an actual hospital. They're in their own building. So everything is autonomous.
Yeah, so it's not in the cluster that's in the middle, because trust me, I spent a lot of time in Palo Alto.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So, we didn't do a lot of the outside buildings, you know, but we were, and now it's even, I mean, by the time it was what, 2014, from the time we started, which was like 11 or 12,
right?
And they had built like all sorts of new stuff by that time. So
this would have been 2012 when I went through this program.
Oh, wow.
Well, towards the very end of 2011, because I got in 28 days was Thanksgiving, around Thanksgiving when I went there. Yeah.
You went a while before you actually got. Wow.
So from 2003 until the end of 2011, I was on my own. Most of the time I was homeless, sleeping on people's couches. I slept in my own car. I slept in a garage in Reading when it was January and it was like -10 out. Yeah, I've never slept on the sidewalk, so I'm not going
Might
to.
be better than Reading. Oops, sorry.
Where?
Trying to figure it out.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, Reading in summer.
Oh.
Yeah, Reading in summer is insane. It's easier to do that than in the wintertime when it's cold and snow touches down.
Man, so 10 years ago, I mean, was when you kind of like the journey finally
started uphill.
Yes.
It did. Wow. So the PTSD program was the next thing, and I only lasted 46 days there with an invitation to come back. And then I went right over into the year-long program for veterans. So it's the Veterans Rehabilitation Program, again, on the Menlo Park campus. And that program is a lifesaver because it does the very thing that I finally needed to learn. It's called cognitive behavioral therapy. And it's where when someone has panic, they have a thought and then they have an action. And there's nothing in between that stops that. Yeah. Cognitive behavioral therapy teaches you that you have a thought, but then it makes you go, but what's the truth? And then what is the action? So it interrupts the process that panic has, your brain has now rewired itself to respond to panic. And usually it's flight with panic people. It's not usually fight, but
a little obvious. Yeah.
You were all about flight.
Right.
You were capitalizing on GHC.
I should have grown wings at some point. I was flying every chance I got. Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to fast forward on it because the story is important. So you get done with Menlo, right?
Yeah.
So where do you work up? How do you get up to Reading?
Well,
Did you go to Reading after that?
No, after that. So I got out of Menlo Park, out of my year-long time there, because I was there for a year and like 3 months, I think, altogether. I was awarded 70% disability, and this would be the first time that the VA would acknowledge after I was discharged, all this big space, that there was really something wrong, that I really did have a major disorder when it came to panic, that it was interrupting my life. And so they gave me 70% service-connected disability, and then they gave me a housing voucher, and they said the only place you can use this right now is Santa Cruz. That's the only open slot. And so I moved to Santa Cruz, which, I mean, I'm not going to be mad about that. Who doesn't want to live next to the ocean?
Yeah, and going back, it's like you're retracing some of your steps to kind of cover what you learned.
Yeah, it was pretty wild to head back there, but I headed back there. That's where I got there in the beginning of 2013, and that is where I was there for a couple of years. I left in 2015 to go to Reading, but I met my now husband right when I was leaving. I met him in June
that's
of 2015.
The one. Because if you look at her now compared to like when they first met, that's like he's a gorgeous man.
He's a gorgeous.
He is like he's like, and I remember when we started this, I reached out because I'm like, hey, listen, like I don't know his backstory, but I know there's something there, So that's
Eric's got a man crush.
Yeah, that is a beautiful man. I mean, anybody that can take damage good.
By the way, what's up, Square Table? Sorry,
that's TD. What's cracking?
Yeah, no. Okay, so we're
you're leaving Santa Cruz. You meet
Jeff.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to throw it out there, but yeah.
Oh, it's okay.
I mean,
yeah. So I left Santa Cruz. I met Jeff, and he helped me move. And everybody at his job was like, oh, you're helping this girl move. You just got out of a divorce. It couldn't possibly. And he's like, oh, I hate women. And I'd been single from my first marriage for so long by this point that I was like, I'm never getting married again. I'm 40 years old. I have this little cat and I love to write. I'm going to go write a book in Reading and, hopefully do something useful with my life and go to a great church out there and I'll be okay. And by this point, the panic I don't want to say it was manageable because but it was certainly not what it was before. I certainly was not visiting a hospital every week because that's very real for me. I was in a hospital every week for years. It got to the point where the ambulance guys, when they would come to pick me up, they knew my name. They knew where I'd be
already.
Yeah, they knew everything. And they were like, again, and I'm like, yeah, I'm so sorry. And I would apologize. I would tell them, I'm so sorry. I mean, I had a fire department guy pick me up from the freeway in Fremont and drive me back because I freaked out and I couldn't drive and I had to pull over, you know. So they knew me really well up and down that traversing through all of that. So it just, you know, but anyway, so when I moved to Reading, I still had anxiety, but I was trying to get back into the workforce again. I was trying to write. I had all these techniques now that I learned from the Veterans Rehabilitation Program. And so I left my voucher behind because it had to stay in Santa Cruz. And so that was like a real testament to how far I felt I had gotten by this point, that I was like, you know what, I'm going to leave. Another veteran needs that voucher. I lived on it for almost 3 years. I think I'm going to be able to do this. I think I'll be okay. Because this was June of 2015. So we were 2.5 years I lived on that voucher.
Wow.
So I moved to Reading and got connected with a great church there, continued my counseling. I went through some what we call deep inner healing counseling sessions that again address the heart and the soul. So I did that. I went through like 7 really intense 2-hour-long sessions with that. I learned that I love to paint. So I started painting, and I learned that I'm very creative. I had, you know, just all these things about myself that I didn't know. And then all of a sudden I guess you could say that I felt like I was alive again. So I had an interest in my life and what I could do with it and how I could apply it. And I still had anxiety, but I was determined to keep using the tools that they had given me and just try to make a better life for myself. And then Jeff would come down and take me on dates, and I had never had a guy do that for me before.
That's a long drive.
He drove from Santa Cruz to Reading. Yeah. Every other weekend he would drive and take me on a date, like, and hold the door and
Chivalry.
Chivalry is not dead, ladies. It is not dead.
I remind Shonda every day. I open doors.
I love that.
I do all the laundry.
Yeah.
I don't do I'll start the laundry and I'll switch it over, but I don't fold.
No, today I did it all, put it all away.
Dude, I sat and watched her clean the house today before I came over here.
I'm proud of you. We're helpful.
Go, Shonda. You rock.
Yeah, good.
Helpful is helpful. I promise.
Yeah. No, so I mean,
gesture.
Yeah, like just over the last couple of years, watching and seeing how this relationship's now started, and again, like I said, I don't know what Jeff's backstory is, but obviously he's got an interest in you, right? I mean, every other weekend going from Santa Cruz to
well, and let's be real, you couldn't hide what you were dealing with or what you're dealing with.
That's got to be up in the first couple dates, right? I mean,
I wanted to, yes. So literally the second time he drove to take me on a date, I had a major panic attack that the ambulance did end up coming to get me. It was bad. It was just one of those, I could not get on top of it. I thought I was having a heart attack. The ambulance came and got me. So I called him from the ambulance and I said, this is real. This is what it is. And if you don't show up at the hospital, I understand because this is a lot. And I can't tell you that this is not going to be the last time that this happens. I just can't. Yeah. And so he showed up and he drove me back to my apartment the next morning and stayed there with me. And I remember waking up and looking over at him and being like, this guy is
serious.
Yeah.
She's the one saying that.
Yeah.
I just, because, and maybe you'll get this, maybe other veterans have already told you this, but when you're dealing with things like agoraphobia, like panic, like anxiety, things that society says are ugly and you should really hide and they're shameful, and then you add a faith element into that of, people shame you in your own faith, I felt like I was unlovable at this point. And so to have somebody be there for me in such a free and compassionate way and want nothing in return, I didn't know how to even connect that was love, that I was being shown love by someone who didn't even really know me that well at this point. But what he did know of me in our marathon conversation when he helped me move was that he really liked my heart. And that was the first thing that Jeff said to me that I have never had anybody say to me. He said, I just think you have the most beautiful heart and I want to know that heart more. And I looked at him and I said, you have no idea what this heart has been through. And he said, I know, and I want to hear more about it. And
So
so
let's keep that positive going, right? So let's keep
Yeah,
the positive going. And so things happen, and you guys
we got
decide-
married 9 months later.
Yeah, 9 months.
9 months.
Yeah.
It was so fast. I mean, he told me, he's like, I knew the day I moved you that I wanted to marry you. He's like, but I'm not going to tell you that. You would have thought I was nuts.
Hey, I had kind of the same thing with my wife. Like I knew the minute, because I had already been through something. I had all the starting young stuff too. So it I'd been down that road. But when I met her, I was like, all right, I think we may have been a little less than that, or a little right around there. I gotta do the math. But yeah, we were pretty close.
I had to wait for someone to become legal.
We're 23.
No, we were cruising McHenry.
That's funny.
Yeah, I was 19. She was 16. Wells Fargo parking lot.
Wow.
Nice.
Right there, Stanford Silver.
Yep.
Cruising McHenry.
I got jumped at the Taco Bell.
There you
Oh
go.
my gosh.
I broke her radio.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
We probably all cruised at the
Yeah,
same
for
time,
sure.
'cause
I'm
Yes.
sure.
we're all the same age.
Boulevard
so
billiards and all that good stuff.
yeah, I went to Oakdale though.
You bet.
Oh, okay.
My junior and senior year.
Yeah.
So
So,
Oh my
so you guys, so now this thing's blossomed. You guys got married, and you've also do you have another title too? Right? Don't you have another title?
What do you mean?
You have little ones around the house now.
Oh, yes. So I married into 3 stepkids,
That's
but his
awesome.
oldest was already 20 and on her way to Australia. So I met her and then she was gone. So that wasn't, and so then the other 2, I became a stepmama, and they were 11 and 6 when we met, and 12 and 7 when we got married.
That's
Well,
awesome.
yeah, they were already almost, So it was, I'd only had my daughter for 8 months before the adoption was final, so I didn't have any experience on being a
Kid.
stepmom or any, I mean, other than an infant baby for 8 months, I didn't know what I was doing. But I was just like, here we go, and, having children in a situation when you are someone who deals with anxiety is it's just a whole nother animal, but I did my best. I tried to, I wouldn't say hide it is a fair statement, but I tried to just keep it. If I was having a bad day, I would tell him I'm having a rough day, and thank God the kids were in school. So if I was having a rough day, I would have most of the day to manage that. And most of the time, by the time they were done with school, I would be better and it would be okay. But they would see the anxiety, and they would have to experience that with me, which I hate that. I hate that that's, but I wasn't having episodes where I was like running downstairs and running down streets. It was nothing like that. It would just get to this point where I would just feel like I either need to call an ambulance, or I need to just start counting or doing my breathing, or just any of the things that they had taught me to try to keep it from cresting into a place where I couldn't keep it under wraps, so to speak.
Right. Well, I mean, I'll just say you're amazing right now.
Yeah.
I mean, you just to be able to tell that whole story, and that the journey that you've gone on, and so eloquently and just calmly, because it's you can hear it in your voice, and just even with the those last few moments of sharing, like it's not all gone,
Right?
It's there. It's just you've learned how to manage it. I would think and hope, with you saying you found your creativity, you like to paint, that I'm hoping those are great ways to cope and get through moments when needed. And it's great to see you doing what you're doing, and the positivity. And because when you sent us that email, and I was like, cool, I'm gonna be honest, I was like, oh, this is gonna be hard.
Well, she's got a base now. She's got support, and that was the main thing she never had before.
No,
she didn't deal with it, right?
Yeah.
And so now, you get into the VA, you get the programs, you get the exercises, for lack of a better word, and now you have your faith, and you've built on that. And what I love, what I love is on your Facebook, you have like no friends in common. I absolutely love that. I do, because I mean, I don't want those people to judge. Don't judge me.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I am who I am. Like don't
Right.
judge me.
Right.
And she has plenty of people that are on her Facebook, and she posts her daily devotions and stuff like that, and shares her stuff, and whatever that gives back to you, man, just keep it going, girl.
Yeah.
Keep it going. That's I mean, I have so much literature. I always tell people about, the Cal Vet book here, the Veterans Resource, Suicide Prevention in the Military. I mean, the PTSD doesn't mean you're crazy. And I'm just like, dude, you're the walking pamphlet, right?
You are.
Yeah.
You are. And being that, I mean, I knew you went up to Reading and now you're down in the Sacramento Valley. There's always that need for people to share their story.
Right.
And again, that was one of the reasons, I had reached out, because I knew you'd went through some stuff. I didn't know all the stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, that there's a book here somewhere that somebody needs to hear, because I guarantee that there's somebody in the military right now who's went through what you went through. And it may be 3 or 4 people that have went through what you went through. Right. I mean, story wise.
Well, I'm 100% now. So I was given 100%.
Good.
It'll be 2 years in September that they finally, because the unemployability aspect was just, just was not.
Yeah, they have to acknowledge it.
Yeah.
They had to acknowledge it, and so by the time they gave me that unemployability and gave me the 100% finally, which was, like I said, 2 years ago in September, it'll be 2 years. I had 42 jobs, and I've been hospitalized 170 times.
But you are and this is sometimes something we don't hear, but you're actually a VA success story.
Yeah.
Right? And we hear all the negatives, and unfortunately we went through some negatives with the VA with my dad in Palo Alto, unfortunately. But
oh wow,
to hear the positive of your journey, there, and not only just the whole time it's refreshing to hear. And and I know people like Rachel and Melvin, who we've had on the show, they work for the VA, and obviously that's why I never bash, because I think there's good people and there's good parts of it. I think we just came across
tape. There's so much red tape.
There is. It's just too hard. Like you having, it's how many years of dealing since 2003. That you should have been right away shown as, hey, there's something going on. She's unemployable. Like we need.
I didn't understand why when they discharged me, they didn't discharge me with, because on my discharge papers it says like you have this disorder, this disorder, this disorder. I had a letter from the skipper. And it's like, with all of that, why didn't they just say you're now discharged at this percentage based on, because they obviously recognized it enough to discharge me from the military, but not enough to take care of me afterwards. And that was probably the hardest thing to swallow.
Yeah.
I wanted to share an analogy that I wanted to share earlier that I think is so huge. And I hope if there are any other veterans watching this, or if they do watch it, that a counselor told me that was life-changing for me in terms of why counseling matters. And that is, this counselor told me, everybody in life gets a bucket, right? We all get a bucket, like what you would take to the beach for sand. And life is the sand that just gets put in this bucket, right? Well, as we all know, buckets can only hold so much before the sand starts spilling over. And he said, but in life, typically your parents would be the ones to teach you how to cope. So you're going to poke holes in the bottom of that bucket so the sand can drain another way and not overflow. And so what he told me is, he said, people who deal with panic and anxiety and agoraphobia are people who were never taught the coping skills, how to poke the holes in their bucket so the sand would drain. Instead, the sand is anxiety, and it's the overflow of life that you're not able to cope with, and you don't have an ability to handle what you're dealing with. So I don't know about anybody else, but for me, having that visual.
Parents, we need to poke holes in our kids' buckets.
Yes.
We need to help
Some of
drain,
them don't want their buckets.
They don't want their damn buckets.
Especially the teenagers. Oh my God.
And girls.
Yeah. Teenagers. No, boy issue today. So.
Oh, boy issue. Damn.
So
how old is your boy?
Well, it's my last one, because like I said, I have a 27-year-old, I have 2 grandkids, and then I have a 22, 21, and then a 17-year-old, and it's just 17-year-old had a little football injury, and then he's not quite addressing it the way, you know, I would like him to make himself better.
Yeah.
Plus he's actually, it's funny you say you went to the recruiter office and you get in all four. It's an act of Congress to talk to any of them now. Because
so crazy.
we're trying to get him in. I mean, just the Air Force has been completely hard to talk to, but the Navy recruiters all over him.
Yeah.
And, you know, so.
You know, if I can just, and even with everything that I went through, because there's things I didn't talk about today, and it doesn't, we don't need to go back down that road, but everything that I went through, and let me tell you something, I still talked to my son who will be 18. So it sounds like he's pretty close to your boy's age. He'll be 18 in September. And I told him, I said, either Navy or Marines, but if you don't go to the military, you have no idea. It'll test you in ways you've never been tested, but it will prove to you how strong you really are. And it will give you benefits when you get out that you're not going to get any other way. Like the home I live in is from the VA. This is my first home and I own it thanks to the Department of Veterans Affairs.
There you go. And that's awesome to hear, because I'm a realtor and I am part of a program called Homes for Heroes. So I actually give back transactions.
That's awesome.
And then our lender, Tamara, is a VA specialist.
Yeah.
So
we got $5,000 back on our closing because of that.
He'll travel too. He'll go to Reading. I'm just and
no, but if you have any veterans in Modesto area, send them my way.
I'll pay for the fuel.
There you go.
Yeah.
Hey, again, I know I said it before. Thank you. We appreciate you coming on. I know it's not we didn't get the breakdown tier. You held it together real. I know there was a second there. There's a couple moments, but I mean, all jokes aside, we still appreciate it. And this is, you're the second woman that we've had on, and we just need more. We need more stories.
Right.
We also need to bring the studio lights back in too, because
I know apparently it's getting dark now.
Yeah.
So.
We have a season in California.
But you actually, like, looking at you across the room, you're dark, but on camera you're not actually.
I'm not.
Dark,
I look like I'm dark.
I was gonna say you look pretty good.
My screen's lighting me up.
Yeah, well, that's what I got. Sorry, I got my iPhone over here. Apparently, I shoot something up. I don't know what the hell I did.
Somebody messed up the computer.
Gosh, dang! I didn't even touch nothing. I wasn't even playing on it. It only got kicked off twice today.
That's weird. Well, Olivia, you've been wonderful.
Yeah.
That was an amazing story. The way you told it was amazing. Wow. That was great.
If there's anything we can do, let us know. Again, like I said before, we do want to talk to Jeff and see, get his side of the story.
Get his side of the story. Is it as good? No.
No, but I mean, it's we're here for all our veterans and law enforcement and first responders and stuff like that. And this is our platform. This is how we cope with what we went through with our dad. So,
No, I love it. And I'm so glad that you guys are doing this and that you're making space for veterans and for female veterans to tell their stories. And, the most veteran stories are not all pretty, but I can say that I've come out of the other side and that I may still deal with anxiety, but it's not taking control of my life the way it once was. And even though I do have hard seasons, I have mostly good seasons now. And so it's just, keeping on and keeping on, and so, and I wanted to tell my story because I want other veterans to know that it's possible to overcome, and there are tools, there are resources, there are just different things that we can always learn. We can always learn how to better manage our stress and our lives and be the people that overcome. And so I had to make that decision though, that I wanted to live and that I wanted my life to count for something.
Well,
and you've done so.
Well, like we said, and you can share this and send it off to wherever you need to do it and tag whoever.
Well, and now it's on the internet, FYI. So it's going to be on our YouTube channel at Contagion Effect. It's already there.
We broke 101 subscribers today. So
Yay!
we're super excited about that.
I'm glad.
If we could learn how to do this show in like 2 minutes, we'd probably have way more subscribers. But people,
stories are awesome, man.
We're not.
Olivia, thank you.
We're not going to give up what we like for subscribers. So, Olivia, thank you so much. It was wonderful meeting you. And getting to hear your story.
Hi, Eric.
You have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and man, That was awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Appreciate your time.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye. Man, you did it
Dude,
again.
It's like, again, I mean, I know you're gonna get tired of hearing it every week, man.
Every week.
It's a
Here
good
we go.
story. It's one of those, it's the whoa, what, and like she said, she didn't even get to touch on which was fine. She put out what she needed to put out to set the story up, and the ups and downs, and then the freaking bottom falls out, right?
Oh,
I mean,
and it fell out for a while.
Gosh dang it.
And to survive through all that,
it's
I couldn't imagine not just every day not knowing what you're gonna do.
Dude, 172 visits to the hospital.
That's
I
crazy.
mean, it's just nuts. But I mean, look at her now, man. Remarried.
Would have never thought.
Dude, I'll tell you, it's awesome.
That's what when I read the email and then started talking to her, I couldn't put it together.
Yeah. No, it's a cool deal, man. Again, thanks, Mike. I appreciate you, dude. I know we all got life going on and stuff like that, and
everybody
does. It's I appreciate you. Thank you.
Can't even see.
Yeah,
I gotta look at you on camera. I gotta look at you on camera. I can see you brighter. I can
smile. I'm smile so you can see my pearly whites.
There you go. There you go.
Deuces.
Eric, deuces.